We'll call the joint meeting of the Arts Commission and the City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Johnston.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
I've been called a lot of things.
But never a Wyrick.
But
That's right.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney.
Yes, he's here.
Councilmember Wyrick.
Yes, I'm here.
Councilmember Blatz. Councilmember Francina.
Susan?
I'm here. And Chair Addison.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Harmon.
She is absent today.
Okay. Commissioner Golden.
Here.
Commissioner Hercher.
Here.
Commissioner Toscher.
Here.
Commissioner Zeringer.
Here.
Okay.
Okay. And we have quorums.
Just got appointed.
So
Sorry.
You just got appointed, right?
shall we begin? What do we have on the agenda here? Michael,
Just a review of the year.
okay. Well, why don't you take the lead on this? And
All right. Well, this has been a rich but challenging year for the Arts Commission, as much as anything else, because for a variety of entirely understandable reasons, we had arts commissioners falling away like logs. It was very stressful for us. Stuart Crowner had to leave us because of his burden of work with OPAT, with Jones Production Company. Christine Byrne had to leave us because of care for her aging parents. And similarly, Bobby Balderman had to leave because of personal health issues. So we've been in a certain amount of change and turmoil in the course of the year. We fortunately have two new commission members. I think most of you know Gail Hersher, who we welcome to have with us, a practicing artist and lots of experience with art commission work in the East. And Sammy Zeringer, a longtime resident of Ojai and a writer of note in the Ojai Quarterly and elsewhere, and deeply involved in the Ojai arts scene, particularly music, I think it would be fair to say. So we are much strengthened by having those two members, and we have, I'm very happy to say, another member who is, I believe, going to be, I hope, confirmed at your meeting tonight of the council, Betty Wen, who again brings extraordinary experience working in public arts in the Bay Area. She's young, she's vigorous, she's very excited to be with us on the commission. She is herself a practicing artist. She was burned out in the fire up in Upper Ojai and has relocated in the valley and is continuing her work as an artist. So I think she will bring a special sort of energy and expertise to our work. We've had a number of challenges this year in addition to that, but I think we've met them with strength and clarity. And I have to say at the outset that the other members of the commission, who were the sort of hardcore, if you were, have really been heroic this year. Marcy Toscher took the lead as chair of an ad hoc committee to really get a hold of the Trimpan Arch, which is perhaps the finest piece of public art we have in this community. And it was being constrained, limited, and I think one could say visually and in terms of use, damaged by the fact that it was being used as a ticket collection locus for various events at Libby Bowl, and things were being propped against it and put on top of the pillars, and it really diminished and affected the impact of that work. Marcy led the charge, and I think we're now really moving in the right direction to create a different way of managing the crowds there and really bringing the Trimpan Arch back into focus. Linda Harmon, as I'll recount when we get to the work of her committee, she is with family back east and couldn't be here tonight. She also has been working like a Trojan. I mean, incredible hours put in support of the exhibits here in City Hall and the museum and in the work with the museum, and I'll elaborate on that later. And the Trojan of Trojans is Christine Golden, who, as head of the Public Art Committee, has been burdened, challenged, and has met the challenge of dealing with some quite extraordinary, challenging public art projects that have emerged in the course of this year. And with that as an introduction, I'll let Christine talk about public art as a function of the commission this year.
Well, thank you, Michael. Now I always have an image of myself as a Trojan horse.
Not a horse, no, but
Yes, a hardcore Trojan, yeah, right.
did I say
Johnny would
that?
know that. Excuse me for 1 minute. This is part of my presentation, but I have to get up. Put this right over here by the empty seat.
Yeah, we need a roll of drums here, right? Bada bada boom.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk to you about 2 brand-new public art installations that are going to go Thursday to the Arts Commission for final approval. They've been recommended for approval by the Committee to Approve Public Art. Marcy Toscher, Michael Edison, and myself sit on that committee, along with Barbara Hirsch and a member of the Planning Commission, John Merck. So I think I'm the one who's going to make this go forward. So this is the Sane Living Center public art installation. It's a stainless steel sculpture. Now, for those of you that don't know, this Sane Living Center is directly across the street from Java and Joe and the massage, A1 Massage Relaxing Station, and just adjacent to Porch Gallery. It used to be the funeral home. So this is where this installation is happening. The Matilaha side is Sane Living Center, and the Montgomery side is going to be the new home of the Vegan Cafe. Okay, so there's a picture up there on the screen too, which gives you a better idea of what it will look like as a stainless steel installation. So this is a sculpture which is named Evo 3. It's 4 feet high on one end and goes all the way up to 8 feet high on the other end, as you see there if you look at the maquette. And it's in the form of a question mark laying on its side. And the period is being represented by what is going to be a
Sundial.
a sundial. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so this is a flat stainless steel surface that is going to be laser cut with more than 100 images, and these images have 3 distinct patterns, and the art is following the evolution of mankind from a sea creature all the way to today, where artificial intelligence is now sort of taking over what we may become in the future. We're really excited about this. As you can see, there are words written along the base. You can see that up there on the maquette as well as on the screen. And all of this helps the viewer identify with what this sculpture is conveying. The artist is Ray Serino. Ray Serino lives here in Ojai. He's a fine woodworker. Some of you may remember him as being called the innovative mad scientist by an LA magazine. He's very innovative, and he's the brains behind all of this, along with Aubrey Balkine, who is one of the partners for the whole development that's happening over there, and is himself a graphic artist. So this is it. This is one of the new sculptures that's coming to Ojai, and we're really very excited about it. Sane Institute didn't know that they were going to qualify, and I just want to add on to this that once they found out, their cooperation and their excitement about doing public art was just boundless. They were very excited to do something that would reflect what their institution is all about. There's going to be a soft opening of the restaurant in a couple of weeks, so look for news about that. And we understand that the stainless steel sculpture is coming along and will be installed in no short order. Okay, we'll move on now.
Can I ask a
There's another look at it. Sure.
Is there going to be a bird bath?
It is not going to be a bird bath. If we go back and we look at the,
No, is there going to be?
no, there is no bird bath. It is instead a compass. Okay?
Oh, But that doesn't mean there isn't gonna be a bird bath.
As far as I know, there's not going to be a bird bath.
I'll remind them. I'll remind them.
Originally, they had thought of the period, the question mark and the period at the end, as being a water feature. But it turned out that it was too involved with the water and the evaporation and possible damage with water flowing, and so they've changed it over to be instead this compass. So does that answer your question a little bit better?
Yes.
Okay.
Half of it, but I'm still gonna go, I'm gonna go.
Okay,
talk
I'm sure
to
they
them.
would love to hear from
There
you.
needs to be a bird bath.
The second
Does that have to go
project,
before the Public Arts Commission?
No,
There is a drought too, so
separate from this work.
Are you
It's
sure?
gonna be a simple bird bath.
Does that have to be part of
People
this?
can- you know,
A bird bath might have to become part of this.
No, they can put it, and you know what?
All right,
The
I
people
don't
that
want this to
drink
be
water can just pour their
part of my
water.
5 minutes. All right, the second installation is happening at the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa, and this is a welcoming redwood table and benches. It's also called the Farmhouse Project. It's the new event center, which is on the 18th hole over at the Inn's Golf Complex. This welcoming redwood table has a little history, and I want to walk you through this because I think it's such an interesting story for not just you to know, but for everyone in the community to know. In 1980, 12 coast redwood sequoia saplings were planted by the 18th hole, and they grew into these beautiful trees. But in 2017, when the project, the event center project, was approved, those trees were felled, and there was a bit of an outcry about the fact that those trees had been taken down. Well, the inn had thought that they would use these redwood tree, the lumber from it, in some way as part of the farmhouse project. What they did was they worked with a young man by the name of Ryan Lang. Now, Ryan Lang is the fine arts coordinator and woodshop teacher at Ojai Valley School. He teaches pre through 8th grade. And he took charge of those redwood planks, and he transported them to the Ojai Valley School upper campus last year. Just about this week it was that he took them up there. And a week later, the Thomas Fire broke out. And when Ryan was later, about 3 or 4 weeks later, able to go up and check out the logs, they were scorched. And here's a look at what redwood logs look like, and here's a look at what he found when he went up to Ojai Valley School. Those logs were scorched. But Ryan scraped and found that there was a layer of char, but because redwoods hold a lot of water, the redwood had survived underneath the char. And so there's a story about these trees. And this story, I'm going to tell you in a minute how it's going to be incorporated into this piece of public art. But before I do that, I want to read a quote by Ryan, because I think it really says everything about this project and about who he is as a wood artist. Ryan said, "These logs are a testament to the strength of our community, and that we too shall continue to stand in lasting beauty." And I think that's especially poignant considering what's been happening to the south of us in the last week and a half. It's just sort of kind of hard not to cry a little bit. So the scorched Thomas Fire redwood is being used to construct a welcoming table and 2 benches for the new event center. Now, this tree story that you see up here, and it's too long to read, but that is going to be transferred to the top of the welcoming table with a laser. It's going to be engraved, that whole story that you see up there, which is the story that I just told you about the history of the tree. Now, the shape of a coastal redwood is going to be cut out of plate steel and joined, as you see in the picture, to the side of the table and along the edge. Ryan meditates with the logs of the trees he works with and feels that he can come into contact with the spirit of the tree. And so this is the spirit of the tree that he's putting on the table and also down below on the benches as well. Now, the table is 16 feet long, it's 3 feet wide, and it's so massive and heavy that they had to use railroad tie technology in order to fasten it together. And it's going to be craned in, much as our lizard was craned in at Libby Park. It's going to have to be craned in and set into place when it's finished. This welcoming table had help. It had help from almost every student at Ojai Valley School. Ryan had the students that were older, the 8th graders and above, or up to the 8th grade, help him with carrying the wood and choosing the wood, and the younger kids helped him plane the wood. There's a picture of Ryan working with a kid on planing some of this wood. I think that this aspect of this piece of public art makes it so unique and so endearing and so precious to all of us. It's on its way to being finished. The wood is going to be kiln dried for 6 to 10 weeks. It's expected to be finished in early 2019, and Alex Kim, who is the manager of the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa and one of my favorite human beings on the planet, he's just a fabulous individual and person. He is going to plan on unveiling the welcoming table and the benches at an open community event. So we'll all look forward to that as well. So those are our 2 public art projects that we've been working on, and there are more to come. We think there might be another 3 just around the corner. Any questions?
Thank you, Christine. I think it's worth pointing out that the way the public art ordinance is structured, when the financial situation reaches a point where there is public art money to be spent, the people responsible for that have choices. They can hire a consultant who then essentially does all the work for them, including hiring an artist, or they can turn the money into the public art fund, which we have designs on and are beginning to speculate about how we might use that. But in this instance, importantly, I think, that process within the boundaries of the particular ordinance led to the choice of 2 wonderful local artists, both teaching in the community, both connecting with students and their families in the community. And this connection, it seems to me, enriches these pieces really fundamentally. And I think it's something that is close to our heart as a commission, that at every chance we get, we will be encouraging this sort of participation by community artists and drawing upon these rich resources that we have here in the community. Okay, well, moving on to the Artist Mentor Program. This was, I believe, our 5th year of the Artist Mentor Program. Again, a very successful program. We only had 4 artists apply for the program this year, and that's something that we want to rectify. We had funding for 5 because we do this program with the Ojai Education Foundation. They support one of the pairs of artists and students. But with the 4 mentors available, we had 18 student applicants. And that was a challenge, to select the students that we felt, because of their applications and the recommendation that we received, and pair them with artists. Now, already one of our new commission members, Gail Hersher, has suggested that perhaps we need to revise the program and structure it so that an artist could work with perhaps 2 or even 3 students, depending on what the medium was and who the artist was and who the students were. So we will be reviewing that program in the next couple of months before we initiate it again in the coming year. And I think Gail's suggestion is one that's going to be very stimulating for us. The City Gallery Committee. This has largely been Linda Harmon's responsibility. As I said, she couldn't be here today because of family commitments. But what you see in this building, month after month, is the consequence of Linda and that committee working to reach out to artists in the community and to create a variety of displays here in the City Hall. But also now, because of our connection with the museum, every time there's an exhibit here, there's now a dedicated space in the museum. As you enter the museum and turn to the left, the space on the immediate right before you go into the hallway is now dedicated to art from the city collection or from the current exhibits. And so in that way, we are continuing this flow and interchange with the museum, and that's become a very important part of what the City Gallery Committee does. That is one of the things that Linda and the other members of that working committee have spent a whole lot of time on, because it involves meeting with artists, visiting their studios, and the careful selection, and then the hanging of the exhibits. And again, Linda has been an incredible stalwart in that regard. She just is devoted to the work. When she told me that she couldn't be with us today, she sent some notes, and I thought I'd share with you her final remarks. I am proud to be a part of this city and its government. Thank you for your support of the arts. And that comes from her heart and from all the work she does to support what we're doing. We move on now to the Ojai Education Committee, and that was the committee that led to the creation of the book on architecture, Ojai Architecture, which is selling very well. I'm happy to report the museum is the primary locus for those sales, but they have placed another order for books to be on sale. This was stimulated, of course, by the fact that, stimulated by our creation of the book, they then had an exhibit, Starchitecture, they called it, in which they featured everything that was in the book. So this interplay is working very, very well. Gail Herscher is going to be the new chair of this committee, the Education Committee. And Gail, do you want to talk about what we think we're going to be moving towards in terms of our next publication?
Well, I don't think we've decided yet.
No, but we're leaning.
But, one thought that we've had is to produce a sort of map/brochure that would identify all the public art projects, so that if a visitor wanted to see all the projects, they could pick up one of these brochures or whatever it turns out to be. And that seems like a good idea. I know I sort of wander around and see them, but I know I haven't seen them all. So it might be fun to have that available. And I don't think it will be tremendously expensive, and I think we approve that.
Yeah, I think we've actually approved it at our last meeting, so I think we can go forward on that project.
Great.
And it's worth pointing out that this could also be linked with an app, which could be created so that people could pick up the brochure, or they could plug in to the Art Commission website and plug into the app and have that, so they either have paper in hand or they have their tablet or phone in hand. And we think that will be a compelling way for visitors to the community to say, oh, look, back in this corridor, there's a statue of a bear that's a piece of public art. Let's duck back in there and take a look at that. Or what's this trimp and arch thing? Let's walk over there and see it. So it's a way, I think, for the community, but also for the visitors to the community, to get a better sense of how public art functions in our community.
Question.
Yes.
Is the pottery book still in the works?
The pottery book, I think, is next after this. I think our feeling was, after quite lengthy discussion at our last commission meeting, that really bringing the public artwork, now that so many pieces are suddenly emerging after the economy took off and buildings got generated and cash got generated, we really need to take advantage of that impetus. And I don't think this brochure project will take very long either. So I think it's pretty clear consensus on the commission that we'll move from that to a book focusing on pottery, going back, as you suggested, I think, Sousa, to the Chumash and to that historic basis for pottery and ceramics here in the valley, and then going all the way forward up to, and necessarily, of course, including Beatrice Wood, and then the contemporary ceramic and glass artists who are here in the valley, because I think we can make that a pretty big umbrella to include glass and ceramics and pottery. And I think that will be the work that follows upon the creation of the brochure. The Art Grants Committee exists only because the Arts Council each year, thank God, has been willing to, or the City Council rather, has been willing to support the idea of providing grants for artists here in the community. And with the stipulation that there's a matching grant. And so artists who apply for grants have to submit a pretty detailed form that outlines specifically how they will match whatever funds they do receive. Marcy Toscher has been spending I don't know how many hours on this particular project before we make decisions at our meeting this coming Thursday. And Marcy, you want to talk about the process and where we are, please?
Quickly read a little blurb about the grants program and the philosophy behind it. The philosophy of the grants program. The program funds nonprofits and individual artists whose primary purpose is to produce or present arts and cultural programs primarily in the city of Ojai. Support is given for expenses that expand or enrich existing arts programs, fund new programs, or promote professional development. General operating support, ongoing programmatic and administrative expenses, and endowments, debt reduction, and capital improvements are not eligible for funding. The Arts Commission publishes application materials and deadlines, we hold a grant workshop. We review the applications, we invite the applicants to a commission meeting, and we finally recommend those grants that we feel deserving for the council to approve. And you will be getting our recommendations for your December meeting. We're meeting this Thursday to make our decisions and our allotment of the funds. And for 2018, we were allotted from the city, thank you very much, $25,000. This year, we were given an extra $2,500. If you look at the history of the grants program, I just found history going back to 2010. There were only 5 applicants. 2011, we had 6 applicants. 2012, 6 applicants. 2013, it jumped up to 12. 2014, 12. 2018, 8. 2016, 13. 2017, 6. 2018, 12. And 2019, 8 applicants. I have to say that the quality of applicants this year is phenomenal. Some of them are receiving their second round of money. A few of them have achieved incredible results with the seed money they were given initially. For example, the Townies podcast that Kim Maxwell does is now reaching national significance and prominence. And I forget exactly what her viewership is up to now, but it's
I think it's over 20,000.
yeah, I think like 30,000, and it really promotes Ojai nationally in terms of being a cultural town with really creative and innovative people. And only one year were we able to award 100% of the funding to the applicants. That was kind of an unusual one, but I'd say mostly on average, we can fund about 50% of the amount of money requested. It fluctuates 40%, 50%, something around there. So there's never enough money. But even the money we're able to give out, we get incredible results, and we're looking forward to hearing from the 2018 recipients. At the end of 2018, they can choose to come to our first commission meeting in 2019, give us a report on how it went. So I would encourage everyone to watch that, and you can hear firsthand all of the wonderful things that were done with the grants money. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions before we move on? Okay, it's a very important program, and I think the fact that it's a matching grant program is particularly important, so that that and the scrutiny that is given to the applications, and Marcy's responsible for that, and the fact that the applicants have to come and defend their grant proposal to the commission. They're given that opportunity anyway, and they seize upon it. And it's dealt with in, I think, a necessarily very rigorous way. The Art Acquisitions Committee is next, and again, this is Linda Harmon, who's been in charge of that in the absence of other commission members. And the most recent work is in the front lobby, I believe, of the building here. It's Martha Moran's Altar to the Fire Gods, which was a piece that came out of the fire experience and was selected by the Arts Acquisition Program. That program, too, it relates again to the connection with the museum. And you may recall that a couple of years ago that we put in a request for what I'm now sort of embarrassed to admit were some very expensive rolling racks to add to the museum's capability to store art as we were beginning to explore this relationship with the museum. The wisdom of the city council prevailed, and that expenditure was not made, and as a result, further investigation led to a much less expensive solution, and that has now been installed at the museum at a much less cost and was within our budget this year. And as a result, the city collection and the continuing additions to that, as created by the Acquisitions Committee, is now all housed in the climate-controlled storage facility at the museum, and things are not stacked on top of one another. They're all carefully preserved. And at the same time, Linda has also integrated descriptions of every piece into the software that the museum has, so that we now have a full and complete record of the work. And we have one more committee to talk about, and that's the Awards Committee. You may recall that Jay Hirsch received the Lifetime Achievement Award this year, and well-deserved. You may have noticed her in her Madrigalia regalia on Ojai Day. I mean, she pops up everywhere. So that was very gratifying to see someone who has contributed as much as she had. We are now in the process as a commission of exploring possible nominee or nominees for the Hope Fraser Award, which is an award made occasionally by the commission, not regularly every year, in honor of a former commission member, Hope Fraser, who some of you may have known. Sousa, I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
A remarkable woman who made a contribution as a council member and to the cultural life of the community. And that's really what this particular award celebrates. And when we began to discuss it at the meeting before last, names started flying forward of people that merited that award. And finally I said, okay, look, everybody come to the next meeting with one nominee. And we tried to make that work, but we still had, we ended up, I think, with more than one each. But now at the meeting on Thursday, we're going to get down to it, and we have a list of possible people for this Hope Fraser Award. And it's been discussed at our commission meeting, so it's public knowledge that we're looking at, let's see, help me out here. Nigel Chisholm of the Vine for all that he has done with scholarship programs, soccer coach, the music programs that he has created and funded in large part at the Vine, the program he has now for young artists on Monday night, et cetera, but also Brian Bemmel and his storytelling festival, who's, for years now has made that wonderful contribution. Scotty and Julia for everything they have done, ranging from their work as performers to their work as teachers to their creation of a youth choir to the old timers choir. That isn't the name of it. I forget what they call
Rockin'
it.
at Old School.
Rockin' at Old School, yes. Yeah. At any rate, those are the type of people that we are going to be discussing in terms of this particular way of recognizing people like them who are a vital part of the cultural life of the community. And I think that sort of sums up what we have to tell you about, and we're open to any questions, comments, suggestions, admonitions.
I have something?
Yeah.
Susan?
Is there a possibility of someone in your group exploring artist housing, how they accomplished it in Ventura? Because, we all have to recognize that as housing becomes more expensive, it's going to be more and more out of reach of budding artists. And if we truly want to support the arts, we have to find a way for artists to be able to live here and stay here. So I just wanted to make a note of that again. And it's possible that, this may be premature, but when Chaparral rolls around again, but we can be, everything begins with a thought. So let's keep that thought in our mind.
Well, that's,
about housing.
yeah, that's very much in my mind. I was involved in the creation of the Wave in Ventura, for example, and I've been pestering the superintendent of schools about Chaparral and how it could, if it can be made to work financially, it would be extraordinary to have that as an arts complex with a functioning theater for concerts and plays and poetry readings and so on, with all of those rooms facing Ojai Avenue being studios/boutiques where artists could bid for that space, where the other spaces could be artist studios and teaching spaces, and as a part of that complex, housing could be a possibility as well. And I know that's something that's very much on the council's agenda as well. So, yeah, anything we can do to coordinate with other bodies, other commissions, planning commission, et cetera, I would certainly welcome that engagement.
I had a quick question.
Bill?
We're getting quite a history here, obviously, of these grants, awards. Is there a consolidated documentation of that, where maybe, I don't know, a binder at the museum or somewhere where someone could say, here's all the awards that have been over the years and what they did with it and et cetera, et cetera. I was just curious.
I think that's a good idea. I know that our website is pretty complete, maybe
Okay,
not
so
as
the
up to
website has
speed as
all
it
that,
should be,
okay.
but I think the website does have that.
Okay.
But I think having hard copies available, perhaps illustrated hard copy at the museum,
Just a thought.
in the space that we now have dedicated, that's a wonderful
Just a
idea.
thought.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Michael.
Randy.
When I was in Gettysburg, we did the tour of the battlefield, and it was an app that actually gave you descriptions of each specific battle. On your app for the walking tour of the artwork, are you going to have something like that? Are you going to have a description of the art, who created the art, when it was
Absolutely.
dedicated to the community?
Oh, yeah.
It's
You
all
wanna-
part of the app?
Yeah, let me talk to that.
Yeah, please.
At Thursday's meeting, I'm going to ask the commission to approve an ad hoc committee to work on all aspects of it. And we don't want to commit to exactly what we're going to do until we lay out and see what all the possibilities are. Now, in the preliminary work that I've done, there are 3 distinct tours that a person could go on, and each tour would take about 2 hours. I took Sammy, where's Sammy? Over here. On one of those tours, was it last week? It seems like it was about a year ago. And it's exhausting just to even do a leg of the tours. So I want to get together with some people that really know what tours are about. Connie Campbell is in charge of the tours that are done out of the museum that show historical Ojai. And I just gave a little preview to Connie of the kind of thing we're going to do, and she said, I so want to work on this. So she wants to be a worker on this. And then we have someone in mind who could help us do the research, because we feel that with each leg of this tour, what really makes it fun is when you hear a story. For example, like the story about the Thomas Firewood welcoming table. Looking at that table and knowing that history just really does something. Same thing, there's a story about the Trimpen Arch. I have stories for almost every single piece of public art that's at Clough Vista Park. That's where I took Sammy through. And she just kept stopping and looking at me and saying, I had no idea. Oh my God, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So we think that, am I answering your question?
You're giving me
The
the
answer
long,
is
the
yes.
long version.
Yes.
The long version. I didn't ask for the short one, though.
So we don't want to commit to how it's going to be until we can lay it all out and see what the possibilities are and talk to some experts that have done this kind of thing before. And then we'll plug it all together. It'll take a while, but I think it's going to be really, really wonderful.
Other comments or questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Your support continues
Thank you
to
for letting us serve.
amaze us. Yes, we appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Meeting stands adjourned.